Hi, everyone. Welcome to the amazing women of Mocap, or of everything, actually. I am so thrilled to be here with Maggie MacDonald and Michelle Lee. They are two of my dear, dear friends, and partially because we always are swapping out for each other for gigs, and because I respect them so much in the industry, but also because no one makes me laugh more than these two. So I thought that this would be the perfect grouping of people to get together and share stories, both mortifying and exciting, and share some of the information that we've gained from all of our experiences working in motion capture and stunts as actors and as directors. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off, and then, a few housekeeping things. Please make sure that you put all your questions specifically in the Q&A tab at the bottom, not in the chat. Otherwise, they could get lost. So put everything in the Q&A. This is also live streaming on Facebook. And afterwards, this is being recorded. It will be posted on YouTube. Julian, was that something? Did someone say something? No? Okay, wonderful. So let's get started. Maggie, hi.
Hi.
So what was your first mocap job? What was the title, the character, and what was going on in your head the first time you put on that Lycra suit?
Well, I feel like I'm dating myself because I think this was like 15 years ago, maybe more. But it was called Homefront, if I'm remembering this correct. And the character was Rihanna, and I got the job I was working in New York City at the time, from a stunt coordinator, and I had not done motion capture. And yeah, I remember putting on the suit and just wanting to follow directions, and I didn't know the art of it yet. It was very bare bones at the time. You know, the balls were, or the help me, the sensors,
yeah,
the markers were really huge and heavy, and and if you fall down, it would hurt. But I just remember I was really excited, and it was just basic stunt work. At the
what was
time.
the character like? What was the type of character?
She was an army gal, so it was a lot of like running up to army trucks and jumping up, and a lot of shooting stuff, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I hadn't gotten the bug yet from that job because I think I was still thinking that I was going to do just basic stunts, and the whole experience wasn't like today. I you do motion capture and you watch the playback or anything like that. I don't think I got to see any playback or talk with the animators or anything. I was in my little corner. I would come out, do my stunt, and then I would go back. You know, I just had a weird suit on.
Oh, that's interesting. And did you get to see your skeleton at all, or that wasn't even an option at that point?
Not an option at that point.
Because so the evolution of motion capture, I mean, they used to just tape the balls on to your skin. Like you'd show up in short sleeves and short pants. And I never did that, but Richard Jordan has talked about it. And so you would actually tape it on to you, and they would glue it to your joints, and they were huge, like golf ball size things. And then little bit by little bit, they figured out the suit, which is like a Lycra. For those of you who don't know, it's a Lycra Velcro suit where they attach markers to all the joints of your body so that they can track the motion of your skeleton. That's the most important thing. And then Maggie was saying, when you first start, you don't know what you're doing, only maybe the animator see that, but things have evolved so much now that they can actually put the skin of the character on a live playback for you, and you can see it in real time, which is pretty incredible to see yourself as a Spartan or a Spiderman or whatever.
The wardrobe too, and the weapons.
Yes, and the weapons.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Which makes a huge difference in terms of the choreography and how everything moves. Michelle, what was your first motion capture job? What was the title, character, and what was your feelings?
First one was actually not a video game. It was a job for Sony, and they were demonstrating at Hollywood and Highland their technology. So it was a live performance, and it was a live demonstration of motion capture. We put on suits, and we went in and just did some, like, I did a sword form, you know, I just was showing off, and you could see the skeleton on, and everybody that would walk by would be like, what is this? That's how I met the guys at Sony. And then from there, you know, they found out that I could fight and do weapons and act and do a bunch of stuff. So then the first game we did together, I think, was God of War. And I played Hera, who was a drunkard, who, yeah. So her scene was of a really great voiceover actress, and I heard it, and I was the one that acted drunk, and she said, "Well, listen to me," you know, and I would like fling my cup and act like I was drunk, and then there were some other female characters that I played that were very risque, because God of War is very risque, for those that know it. And yeah, that was my first game from so many years ago.
That's really fun. My first game, I was a stunt coordinator for another film. Noelle Vega had asked me to come in and audition for it. So it was Spiderman Web of Shadows, which was a while ago. And I had no idea what I was doing at the audition, but I ended up getting it. And it was, because I didn't know what I was doing because I'd never auditioned for motion capture before, and I didn't know what it was. And I played Mary Jane and Black Cat for a couple of the scenes. And that was it was such a crazy experience because, working specifically in film and television, the hours are different, the way that everything is shot is different. Putting on that suit is such a, because it's pure spandex with just balls all over. So when you're doing stunts, like, you usually end up getting little ball-shaped bruises
all over, like just little, very accurate bruises
right
all over your body. Yeah,
because you're getting hit over and over again, and you're always, the blocking is always right on those joints. Or having to do, I recently had to do one in a battery operated suit.
Oh,
with the batteries on the back, and so there's all these forward rolls, and it was like, oh, every single time you did one of those rolls. But I loved it. I thought it was such a blast because there's the freedom of it, right? So you're not restricted by costume or sets or lighting, and it's just focusing on what you're doing.
I think we met at an audition. That might be it.
Was that it? Because did you work on that also, Michelle?
I don't think so, but I met you at an audition for Noelle Vega around that time.
Then maybe it was that, or maybe the Call of Duty ones, or because you did a lot of those also. But in that one, Mary Jane has always been kidnapped. Yeah. So the majority of the motion capture for that character was just being kidnapped, being saved by Spider-Man. And it's interesting because the characters, and then a game I did shortly after that was Conan the Barbarian, and all of those characters in that game are naked.
Oh,
all of them.
Yes, I mean the God of War one I did was naked. Yeah, and I was not a heroine. I was Hera, who was a drunkard and an evil
queen of the gods, right?
Evil queen, yeah, evil queen. But she was a drunkard, and she was whatever, crazy. And then I was a bunch of naked girls.
Because in Conan, everywhere you go, there's just a bunch of naked girls tied up, topless. And he rescues them if he wants, but they're just like this. So there was a lot of this. But even the villain in that, because I played all the women, even the villain in that is like part snake, and she's all shriveled up, totally, again, topless, but totally shriveled up, old, like part snake female character. Except for the main character, whose name I just forgot. She was closed 70% of the time. And so that's been an interesting thing, right? Like the characters that we've played and what they've done in the games has changed. I mean, Maggie started with an army character, thank God, so a soldier.
Yeah, right? But then it went quickly to Saints Row, where I met you.
So Maggie and I met on Saints Row, and our first day working together, we were doing lap dances and pole dancing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like,
we're nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
High five. Here we go.
And I don't know if any of you out there have ever pole danced before, but the key, like a key part of pole dancing and staying safe is the friction of skin on the pole.
Yes.
And so when you're covered in a Velcro Lycra suit, and the only skin that's showing is your fingertips, it's really challenging to pole dance safely and not go flying off as you're spinning because you can't hold on.
Yeah. And you don't feel like, you know, those women that have, you know, the rockin' outfits, because you are covered head to toe.
Right.
You know, and so you feel like ridiculous doing these movements. You have to imagine, you know, being in the heels, but you're really in like these huge sneakers. Like at the time, remember, they were still covered with all the felt on it and the tape, right? And so you're like acting like you're on your tiptoes, but you're like clunking through the volume. Well, not clunking, we were trying our hardest. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And then you're trying to do upside down twist, but you have nothing to hold on to.
Oh, you just slide down.
You just go, it's like it's been greased. Like you can't even.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time I ever had to pole dance for a video game, because it's been several times. It was for Guitar Hero, and it was the same thing. It was just like, I can do like 2 tricks unless you're willing to cut some patches into the suit, because there's just no way that you can do it. And Saints Row was an amazing mix of like kick-ass female characters, and then like complete exploitation. You know,
for God of War, I think someone said that it was through Soundlux, but the one I did it for was Santa Monica Studios, and I think it was God of War 3. It was either 2 or 3. But that one I met a girl, and we were, you know, topless with Kratos, and he was in a den of like naked women. And then I also played Kratos' wife, but which that was interesting because it was like a love scene. Anyway, but I met this girl, and they were like, okay, so you'll be pretend kissing. But you don't have to actually, you know, kiss, because it's motion capture, so you'll just get close enough.
It's almost worse.
It is, because how do you make that look normal? What
about awkward?
What skill set did you guys come to the table with that you felt was most useful? Was it your theater training? Was it your stunt training, acting training, for motion capture? What did you come to the table with and you were like, oh, thank goodness I have this?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that it's partially acting and partially my like martial arts training or like weapons training for me. The acting part a lot, because to it's motion capture, you're showing a lot of physicality, and so much of that is in acting, because you can be so awkward and it just won't translate with the skeleton. So that, and also the fighting abilities to be able to play females that, you know, that can fight eventually instead of just kiss each other. But still, it was a rad game. I have to say, I love the game, and I think it was brilliant and creative and fun to play. So
What about you, Maggie?
I would say the same. I come from a theater background. That's where I started. And I did a lot of action theater too. I was a part of a theater company called the Vampire Cowboys in New York City, which I'm very proud about. And so it was a lot of female driven stories, a lot of action. So I knew how to sword fight. And, but yeah, the theater acting, so you know your body from head to toe, is super important, rather than coming straight from, I would say, TV and film where you're all up here. Was like super helpful, especially when you start taking direction and understanding your body in space. And I couldn't agree more with Michelle. And then because I like to do the action stuff, how to fight, how to fall, gun work, all types of weapons.
It all comes in handy in video games. You know, they say that, I'm gonna get this number right, but wrong, but a very small percentage of communication is the verbal, right? Is the actual words that you're saying, which is why it's possible to have a conversation with someone who doesn't even speak the same language as you, is because so much of it is in our body language. And being able to have the skill to communicate that through your body is the most important thing, I think, in motion capture. And people who come from the theater, I have found, have the ability to be comfortable in their own body, to express that even despite the words. And things are changing a little bit, but especially when we started, you would have the voiceover artist record it, the scene already.
Right.
The directors would pick the takes they want. They would edit it together for timing, and then they would play a track of it. And then you come up with the actions and the stunts and the little movements and the little moments of tucking the hair or, you know, tapping your thigh or whatever feels like character to that track. Much like this is what we were talking about before we started rolling, much like TikTok. So TikTok, you have the voice, which, by the way, Michelle is phenomenal on TikTok. If you haven't checked her out, I'm kind of obsessed with her. For something new now. I've already been obsessed with her, but this is a new thing. But it's the same way where you take the audio and you create your own characterisms to it. And you can see how much the physical brings to it. If someone just sits here and lip syncs to somebody's words, it's not interesting. But if someone's taking these moments to take somebody else's words and add all these extra little things, and that's the most compelling motion capture in video games that I've seen, is people who can hear that hesitation in the voice actor's voice and put that into the body as well, and really just bring another dimension to the voice. I always think of it as Voltron, between the voiceover actor, the motion capture performer, and the animators. We create, and then the stunt people, you create like a character that could never have existed in real life, because no one person can be all of those things.
Right.
These four phenomenal teams.
Exactly.
Bring it to the next level.
Exactly what you said. It's the best, or the most specialized in that category, the best voiceover person for this character, the best stunt person to make this trick look amazing, the best motion capture artist to naturally bring the voice to life with little mannerisms and character movements, and then also the animator to make the timing perfect. It's so much. It takes so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty cool collaborative situation. Okay, there's some questions in the Q&A. Let's see. Hello, ladies. What, according to you, is the most complicated action to shoot for gameplay? That's a good question. So let's go ahead and assume that when he says gameplay, he means in-game movements. And for people who don't know video games, there's two types of ways that you get through the story in a video game. There's the cutscenes, which is like watching a mini movie. You have no impact on what happens in the scene. You kind of put your controller down and watch the characters interact and give you information you need. And then there's the gameplay, or the in-game movements, which are brutal to record. In my personal experience, crouch runs are just the worst, right? Like the fights and the hits and the combat and even the deaths aren't nearly as bad as when you're in a crouch and you have to run for what feels like miles. To me, that's the toughest.
I could add to that. How about zombie crouch runs?
Right.
How about monster infested anything?
So funny.
Yeah, so in game, like she says, you do them a million times because you do them from every single angle and every single possibility and every single iteration that is known to man.
With every single weapon that you
With every single weapon in every single mode.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Calm mode, or are you in action mode, or is and those are very repetitive, but when you have to be a monster doing it, oh man, you're wrecked.
Yeah.
Right.
Your voice is wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you're going on the back 45, only turning on the left foot. And then the front one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then add angle.
Because what they'll have you do is they'll have you crouch run in a straight line, right? And then they'll have you crouch run at this angle, and then they'll have you crouch run at this angle, and then you'll crouch run. So that's what she means by the back 45 on the left foot, is that so you've done all of that once in calm mode, and then you crouch run in stealth mode, and then you do it again in panicked taking fire mode, and then you do it again as a zombie. And so it's like it's the repetition of it, but also your muscle. It's just not, no matter how much you train and no matter how great of shape you're in, you haven't trained for this.
You haven't trained for back 45, holding the gun while looking forward and sprinting. Like
to look natural.
I mean, as a gamer, you're like, yeah, I totally do that, And as an actual human, you're like, F this. I would never do this.
Yes. Yeah. That's such a good point. I feel like nowadays, we can be more vocal with, hey, great, is this what you want? Let's spread this out. Let's divide this work over 2 days if we have the luxury. And people are now understanding, because they are used to, Michelle, like thinking they're watching us in person, but they're imagining the game. So they're thinking, oh, this is fine. This doesn't hurt this person. You know, they're thinking of us like as a video game character. But now we're starting to be we're at a position in our careers where we can say, hey, no problem, I'll give that to you. Let's spread it out. Is it all crouch? Hey, let's do crouch in the morning of these 2 days, and then we'll do, you know, whatever. Now we can do.
I think they're getting wiser about it too. I mean, because that was the other thing, is that as motion capture has become more and more important to video games and have become more pivotal to video games, the animators start realizing the difference between animation characters, which you can have do the same thing 1,000 times and they don't get tired, and then just a human being. And so I have found a lot of the animation directors I've worked with have said it before I've even had to, which is nice.
True.
That's great. That's great.
For days afterwards, you're in bed because there's just no moving. So that was a great question. Thank you. Let's see. Rohit is coming in with the questions. What feedback type is most comfortable for you to get from game animator on the stage? What would you guys say about that?
Feedback, I think.
You're brilliant. You're great. Let's move on.
Yeah, we love you.
Got it in one. Yeah, we love you.
Yeah, we got it in one. That's a good one.
I like it when they tell me what they're seeing.
Yeah.
You know, like what they're seeing or what they're feeling. And then from there, I can sort of adjust, once I've worked with that specific animator, what they mean and what they need.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes when animators will say, I want it like this, and they do it in their body, that's a little harder for me personally, because I can mimic body movement, and then I'll mimic what I see, and then they'll say to me, that's not what I want at all. So if they rather say,
like character based almost.
Yeah, like this is what I'm seeing, or this is what I need, then I can be a little bit more experimental or creative, or say, oh, okay, I'll bring my own expertise to that. But I'm sorry, I'm going around about to answer your question. I'll say what's harder for me is if an animator will say, do it like this, and then I'll go like this, and they say, no, it looks stiff. So then from there, I'll go, okay, they don't mean like this. They just want more tension. And then I'll give them a little bit more
tension. It's also sometimes hard for them. They see it so specifically in their head, but it's not necessarily easy to translate what you see in your head.
Yes.
Out. You know, I know the notes I want to sing in my head, but those never come out of my mouth when I'm singing. So like, I think sometimes people think they're doing what they think they're thinking, unless you're Zach Lowry, who can do it all. There's most time what you just said is perfect, because they might think they're doing what they see, but you're probably doing exactly what they're doing, and they're just not communicating. So to talk about it from a character perspective and what they're seeing perspective is wonderful. Michelle, did you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, same. Just like a character. Like I want this to feel like she doesn't want to leave.
Yeah.
More of a longing walk away, instead of like you're just walking away. Oh, okay, then I'll make the choices, you know, in my body according to my idea of like, oh, maybe I should just linger, and then just maybe twiddle my thumbs, and then just, you know, pull my hair and then walk away. You know, things like that character. But as far as like maybe in game, those are harder. And like Maggie said, like do it like this, and showing me is hard because our bodies are different and we move differently, you know? So like you said, character stuff and more of a feeling, and I'll interpret that and get, you know, notes like that are great.
And Catherine has her hand raised. We're answering the questions from the Q&A, Catherine. So if you want to put your question in the Q&A at the bottom, we'd be happy to answer your question. What were you going to say, Maggie?
Just really quick. Also, I was just thinking of something, because you said Zach, and just over time, I'm understanding how he works. If something's also not working, especially if you're doing that pattern, say right away. Say cut. Hey, I'm not getting what I need. That's a lot easier for us as the performer, because what happens is we're in the mode to try to deliver the whole sequence. And sometimes going through that sequence, just so you can say that really wasn't it. If you know right away, let me know. No hurt feelings. I need to give you what you need. And if you can do that sooner, because you see right away it's not working, or even vocally, if I'm doing the pattern, or even if I'm in a scene like Michelle said, even just subtle little move, like anything like or whatever, then I know I'm on the right track. And I love working with animators or directors that way, just constantly back and forth. It's a collaborative.
What they see in their head is unbelievable.
Right.
You know, the vision that they have in their head is unbelievable. And so to be able to help them translate that out into the real world is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's such a fun collaborative. We have a question from Shara Kirby. Is it ever too late to get into stunt work? I'd love to get into stunts and motion capture, but I'm 24 and I'm afraid I can't get into that shape for it anymore. Shara, I love you.
So
never
cute.
too late. Never too late. Never too late. Oops, there goes my earpiece. You just start training now. Just start training now in something that excites you and that interests you physically. It's not necessarily about being an Olympic level shape. It's about having the specific skill sets. What would you guys recommend for someone who is 24 and starting to get in, wanting to get into stunts and motion capture?
First of all, it's not too late. It's like, it's great. Obviously something's drawing you into this work. So you probably come from some type of background. Everyone gets in a different way. Whether you're a gymnast or you're all around athlete or a fighter or martial artist. But gosh, you just, like Merrick said, just start training, making connections, things might be a little different with COVID, but going to open workouts in parks and things, just networking.
Chat, Nikki just said, I'm just starting and I'm 30 and she's so happy she did. So
there you go.
Yeah. Everything Maggie said is perfect. And finding a martial art that excites you. That was my way in, is I found a specific martial art that I loved and became obsessed with and was training in a lot. And then that kind of led its way organically into the stunt world. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different types, and it really depends personality type, what you like. If you like Muay Thai, or if you like Taekwondo, or all of that will help you. Michelle, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, same. Just getting into things that excite you physically. But I feel like there also is a subcategory for if you don't want to be physical, maybe if you just want to be an actor. I don't know. Some people, because we come from that background, it's natural for us. But I think some people are like, well, I just want to do the acting part of it. So I think that's another avenue of possibility. But I mean, definitely it's a game, and it takes a lot of action, a lot of physical action to complete an entire game. So it will be physical no matter what, even if it is not doing fights or not doing gun work or not doing anything that's considered action. It's still going to be extremely physical.
And you still have to be comfortable in your body.
Right.
There's been several times I've been hired by a casting director to come and work with TV actors coming into audition for roles, because TV, it's a very specific skill set. You find your mark, and most of it is happening right here, and you don't move. You're in fact, you're told to not move your body a lot because it distracts from your face. And so they'll come in and they'll be phenomenal at what they do for TV, but for video games, it's not interesting to watch because it's a full body experience. And so I'll work with them to coach them on how to get back in their body and live a little bit more in their body. So even if, Michelle, that's a great point, even if you don't want to do fights or get thrown off tall buildings or be set on fire, being in your body and knowing how to feel comfortable in your body, so that if you're on a motion capture stage or if you're on a theater stage, you know how to express yourself physically. It's really important. It's a really important thing. So start with that. Start looking into martial arts, like just Google martial arts videos and start watching them and see which ones speak to you, both in theory and practice, the philosophy behind them. Any one of them will serve you in terms of getting comfortable in your body, getting in shape, and then that can segue much easier.
Or even dance too. Or
even
dance too,
Oh,
right?
dance, sure.
You guys
Dance,
have dance background?
I don't.
You don't? No. I did when I was really young, and I feel like that dance led into martial arts very easily. But dance, I feel like dancers are extremely not choreographed, coordinated, and they're comfortable in their bodies too on how to control it and express what they want to. So dance too is a good.
In fact, Michelle, didn't you have to come in and double me for dancing?
I did. That was the best. That's the best story ever. Can I talk about it?
I mean, I was 7 months pregnant at the time, but
yes,
I still can't move like you can because I have
no
no rhythm.
But girl, her belly was out to here in a mocap suit, and I was like, "Hi," and
I was in a mocap suit 3 days before I gave birth.
That was amazing.
Oh, awesome.
That's amazing. It's my favorite story ever. I came in, and she's usually the character. You know, we usually are the characters, and I'm over here like, I'm your double, and I just kick out of it, and I did the most ridiculous dances.
Michelle and I, like the first time you and I really bonded though was on a movie where we were both stunt doubling someone. Remember? We don't necessarily need to say the title
Oh.
of the movie, but that like it was that was the one we just it was an interesting experience, and we just laughed so hard because we had to. There was nothing else to do. You know, it was 114 degrees. We're all sharing wardrobe, and So we're used to being the doubles. We're not used to, so having her double me was like amazing.
A hoot. It was a hoot. I did the most ridiculous dances, like the.
Oh, and let me add this in. I have a bit of a toe in, which I've always had, which is great for my roundhouse kicks, but I've always had a bit of a toe in. And this character now has a toe in because of me. And so Michelle, who is like a perfectly symmetrical goddess of a person, they had literally had to keep saying to her, could you slouch a little bit, could you go in a little bit, could you be less perfect so that you could better double America?
It was awesome being in your body. It was awesome. It was like I just felt like America right now. It was so adorable. It was so cute.
Imperfection feels like okay.
So adorable.
So that was a fun thing. But yeah, you're never too late to start. I know
no, never.
Mid to late 30s who have started. I was never a physical person. I was definitely more of a book reader growing up. I did sports, but not really in high school. But for me, it was the martial arts that I loved. I loved it, and that's what got me into the physicality. And I loved being in my body and knowing my body and knowing what it was capable of. So if you don't have any athletic background, go with dance or go with martial arts, but just start somewhere where you just get to know yourself better, because that's key for stunts. You need to be able to do that.
Yeah, and as old as you think you are at 24, or someone else at 30, that's the youngest you will ever be.
It's true.
You will never be any younger. So this is the youngest point that you are, and you know that is the youngest point, and that's a good starting place. You know what I mean?
And there's lots of videos on YouTube and classes that are doing virtual classes that you can. Jam, I think, is doing virtual classes. Amy Johnson has training videos online. She's a stunt woman who's amazing. There's lots of places you could start tomorrow. You could start today, and just start getting in your body. Just start figuring out what feels good, and then you can go from there. And then when the COVID clears up, reach out to us, and we'll give you further advice.
Tempest, Jam, Amy Johnson.
Yep.
A lot of stunt women have workout videos out.
Mm-hmm. Fierce Lotus.
Fierce Lotus.
Oh, yes, Fierce Lotus.
You can research all that.
Okay, so here's one from Catherine. So you guys got started somewhat early in the evolution of motion capture as a medium and on the ground floor with particular companies that have continued to hire you. What, I guess, marketing and networking advice would you have now that this corner of the industry has gotten a little bit more sophisticated? How do you build relationship with the brand new people in the motion capture community, casting directors, thanks Julia, motion capture volumes, game devs, and so on? I've already worked in motion capture, both cinematic and in game. I have a mocap specific reel. Wow. Awesome. Combatives, firearms, thankfully can still train in martial arts, not as amazing as y'all, but going on 5 years in various styles. I just want to qualify that I'm ready to go, but how to break into the next level. Sorry for the hella long question. No sorries, Catherine. No sorries, great question.
I think it's persistence. Don't give up. Persistence. Keeping on top of it. That's great. You have a reel. I think that's what I would say to start off with is showing some sort, whatever you've got going on, editing it into a really nice presentation, having a good headshot, and maybe a good resume of what you've worked on. And if you haven't, then that's fine. And sending that out to as many people as you can. It's so easy to email these days, you know what I mean? And doing your research and finding them and emailing them, because you never know who could get it. Even if you get it to the wrong person, they might be like, oh, well, I'll just forward this to whoever needs to see this because this is great. And that and persistence. Don't give up, because if you're around long enough, your name is there, your reel has been there. It's not, your reel is forever in that email, so it'll never be, it'll be there somewhere archived and someone can always dig it up. So persistence is key.
Persistence and not being a dick.
Yeah. Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. If you are hardworking, you show up on time, you're professional, and you are a pleasure to work with. That doesn't mean not standing up for yourself if you feel unsafe. That is totally considered professional. So that's under the professional guidance. But if you are fun to work with, if you were good to work with, and you're professional, people remember you, and they just would much rather work with somebody who, look, this isn't just me being modest. I'm not as talented as these two women, but I know I'm pleasurable to be around. And so I get work because of that. And I think that's the most important thing, is be as talented as you possibly can. And then on top of that, be a pleasure to work with, and be professional and hardworking, and understand the big picture and contribute to the project as a whole. Don't just get caught up with your own ego. And to lead into and add to what Michelle said in terms of persistence, you might send 5 emails and they might all get read and they might not respond to a single one of them, but they'll remember you. And there have been so many jobs where I have just sent 1 email every 6 months to somebody and never got a response. I never asked for a response. I just said, here's my update. Here's my new reel. Here's what I've worked on. I hope you're awesome. I saw that you're working on this. You're awesome. Have a great day. I don't ask for a response. And then, 3 years later, I get an email saying you're booked on a gig. And also thanks for the emails.
Yeah.
So you might not hear back from people. You don't know all of the magic that's happening behind the scenes.
Totally.
There's so many conversations that are happening probably about you behind the scenes in the best possible way, especially if you have followed the rules with being persistent and not being a dick. The great conversations are happening behind you, and people are working to get you in there. You just have to stay in front of them. Mm-hmm. And that to me goes exactly to what Michelle says about persistence, is it's easy to forget people when you're being constantly bombarded with every other thing. If you are a game developer, if you are a casting director, you have so many things to think about. You have to think about, and every single day you're getting new castings and new actors being submitted. As a game developer, you're thinking about the characters, you're thinking about the animation, you're thinking about all the different teams, thinking about the marketing release and the strategy and the gameplay, and there's all these bugs that you're working out. You're just not going to remember someone who emailed you once 3 years ago. But if somebody emails you, is not a hassle, is not a bother, but just keeps going, hey, what's up? They're just gonna remember you. And so when something comes up, they could go, oh, how about this person?
Right.
So persistence and kindness, respect.
Yeah.
Those would be the secrets.
I like Catherine's takeaway. Don't be a dick, be pleasurable, maybe learn to pole dance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Takeaways.
Yeah.
That pretty much.
I mean, if mocap pole dancing doesn't work, there's always the real thing. So.
I guess once COVID clears up, right?
Yeah.
Everything has like the COVID clause.
Yeah.
That's the key. Okay, what else have we got? Shara said, thanks, I'm gonna try for gymnastics and getting back into martial art. How are you guys keeping up with work with this time? Oh, so are you guys working at all? Have you worked? There's some games that have worked. I know Doug, my husband, has worked on a game. And honestly, video games I think feel like they'll be back sooner because it feels like a safer,
yeah,
much more easily controlled set. As it is, it's already a really small set. You like Michelle said, you can kiss from 6 feet apart and they just kind of mush you together later. So that's good. I know there's a lot of things that are coming up. And there's some people
I think I have a couple of days at the end of September scheduled, but they scheduled me like almost last month. So they scheduled me months in advance, which never happens.
Right.
But it's cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I was working on a project that I think just got announced, so I think I can say it. It's called Raya and the Last Dragon. Yeah, but I was doing the fight choreography for it, and it's an animated film. But so yeah, I had to do it remote, and like I couldn't ask for people. It was one of the most challenging things. I had to ask my husband if I could practice some moves on him, and he was gracious enough to let me beat him up a little bit in the park, which I'm sure people were jealous that they couldn't do that with their spouse during COVID. But yeah, I had to do that, or, you know, do things one side and then to the other and then splice it together. So it was really tricky, but super proud of it. And yeah, it was a blast, but I have not been anywhere in person. Same thing with Michelle. I have dates on the books, but they've kept canceling them because I guess they haven't gotten things approved.
Nick asks, where do we see ourselves in 10 years within the mocap industry?
Wow.
It changes so fast. It's really hard to tell. I've been directing in motion capture, so I've been segueing into that. I directed a vertical slice of a AAA game, which I can't talk about. And then I directed an animated series that was all motion capture. And I've done some stunt coordinating in it. So I think that's where I'm going to start moving into. I still love doing it. I'm still working on games. There's the game that just came out that just got announced is Gotham Knights. So I'll be working on that and I'm really excited about that. But 10 years, I think at that point I will have segued almost entirely into directing. What do you guys think? Because motion capture also is video games and you guys have, or I'm sorry, movies. And you guys have a lot of movies too.
Well, I think I'm progressing also simultaneously with my acting stuff, and I have a series regular for a TV show that's coming out on CBS, and we got halted because of COVID, but it's near finished and it's going to come out, and so I feel maybe more so of the acting and VO and the completion of the character as opposed to being just VO or being just mocap or more of a performance capture. So
because that's where it's headed to more. Also, when we started, it was voiceover actor, motion capture,
separated,
and more they're casting people who can do both.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in getting a motion capture, don't just work on your physicality, also work on your voice control, because that's a whole nother skill set is your voice and what you're able to do with your voice and the characters you can play. But I think you're right, Michelle. I think that's where it's probably headed, is more and more combined. What about you, Maggie? What do you think?
I don't know. It's a question that I consider and think about on a daily basis, as I continue to grow my family. So personally, I want to be able to still have kids. And this past year, I was able to do that while I was still performing and stunt coordinating. But I think for me, I've loved doing all the stunt coordination and the fight direction, but I still love being a performer. And I'm hoping that will, who knows where that will go. Like I said, I just worked for this Disney job and that was a dream come true. So maybe some more work within Disney and maybe that would segue into directing. Like I don't close myself off. Whatever the project is, that if it's exciting, if it's especially with fierce women, powerful women characters, if I have a voice in there, I'm just really excited to be a part of it. So. I don't know.
Maggie stunt coordinated my feature that we shot last year. In fact, yeah,
That was awesome.
We're all kind of shifting and going with the flow, and it's cool to be open to all the different opportunities that can come up. Susanna asks if we have an agent that books us in mocap jobs.
I do. I have an agent. I was going to say earlier with the question that was really great, that sounded like she was 3 steps ahead. If you have your reel and all your materials, you know, it doesn't hurt then to try to find representation. I do. But I would still say, even though I auditioned with them for a lot of voice work, I get my jobs primarily through who I know and working with Sony and there's different studios around town. Once they get to know you, they kind of hire you in-house, but it's really nice to have an agent to do all the business stuff for you and all of those talks and negotiations. It's super helpful to have someone that's on your side and on your team.
Yeah, I have one as well, but I feel like I get more of my own jobs through networking instead of from the agent.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because by the time I joined up with them, they just started the department.
Yes.
And so, and in fact, I'd helped them bring in a lot of their talent when they started the department. So lately they've been great with auditions, and that's what the Gotham Knights came through them, although it was a previous relationship that brought me in to begin with. But it's so much of, I mean, there's a saying that they say frequently, which is there's a reason why agents only get 10%. And it's because they're only doing 10% of the job. And the job is not just showing up on your day of work. The job is the networking and the hustle and the persistence of it. So yeah, we all do have agents that do that for us, who are amazing. And the negotiation, having them for the negotiation, for me has been invaluable. But a lot of the work does come from pre-existing conditions, relationships. As a stunt person, you will have a lot of pre-existing conditions. That is something that happens over the years.
That's funny.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's keep going with our questions. There's questions. Okay, so with facial capture, there was a question about face markers or no face markers at all and only head cam. I don't know that I'm in a position to answer that because I'm not the one who has to process the data.
Oh.
So in terms of the question for people who might not know, you can either get dots on your face that also help track the movement so that the camera can take the data through the cameras. And even the way I describe that shows you I don't really know what I'm talking about. But sometimes you go in and they don't do it. They don't do the markers on your face. And sometimes you go in and they'll do eyeliner instead of actual markers. And sometimes you go in and they do nothing and it's just a face cam. As a performer, I don't really care. I mean, it's the head cam that's cumbersome and gets in the way of doing what we're doing.
What's the question?
Yeah.
The marker was do you prefer using markers or not markers for your face? Or only head cam? To us, it's really just the head cam that affects our performance, right? The markers don't really.
No.
We don't really weigh in on this because we're not the ones who have to process that data. So I don't know if the data is better with the markers or not. But in terms of what affects us, I mean, I remember on Conan, we had these head cams that came out like this far. And Richard Dorton, who was playing Conan, we had to have some sort of an embrace. We couldn't actually reach each other, and it was supposed to be like a kind of a love scene of sorts. And I mean, the head cam was ridiculous. It couldn't even get close. And there's been so many times where you're like in a scene with someone and you're sitting side by side, and then you turn to talk to each other, and it's whack, bam.
Yeah.
With the head cam. So they're getting tinier, they're getting shorter and shorter, but the head cam is the main thing that affects us. I can't really speak to the markers on that.
I think the markers, if they have markers, then they're actually going to use the markers for specific points on their rig. If they just have the camera, I think, I'm not sure, like, as I'm not an animator, but I think that's for reference. Because if they're not needing, I think it's a point of reference for animation. They'll animate it, but what you're doing right then and there is a point of reference. But I'm not sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Someone said interlocking braces. Yeah, it's just like that. It's
Oh,
just,
it is for reference.
it
Somebody
is a
said.
reference. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so
Yeah, let's do something.
let's see, what else have we got? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about live action versus motion capture, either for stunts or for acting. What do you love about each?
Live action versus motion capture.
Mm-hmm.
I think motion capture is less stressful. I don't know, live action seems a lot more stressful to me because there's so many elements, the lighting and the how your hair is flipped out or your wardrobe flipping up, or I think motion capture is a lot more of a little bit more of a flexible thing. I like both. I think there's a lot more freedom in motion capture. But what do you guys think?
When you're acting, does it help you to be into wardrobe? Does that help you as a character, or is your imagination strong enough that you're like,
I know. I think because of motion capture, I could care less what I'm in or
wearing? Yeah.
it doesn't help me much.
What about being on a set? What about the lighting? Does any of that affect you, or because of motion capture, you're like, just put me in a big bright room and I'll make it be?
I think yeah, I think either way, I'm to the point where I'm blind to everything. Whether there's lights and 500 people staring at me going, okay, I hope she doesn't F up, you know, or I'm in a motion capture studio with an animator and a director and 2 animators, and it's just me. To me, it's all, I see nothing. I'm totally blind to it. But I can understand that when you first start off, it's a big difference, being by yourself and not seeing the visual, you know, layout of the table that you're supposed to be sitting in front of or whatever, versus being in live action where you see like 10,000 extras looking at you going, what is she doing? You know,
And that's television, right? Like you were talking about how like the pace of television, especially as a series regular, new script every single week, and it's just, you're flying, you're doing 12-hour days. Motion capture, you're in and out. It's just, you always know what your schedule is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're 8 to 5 or whatever. You don't have to worry about losing daylight. You don't have to worry about any of that. But for television specifically, and both of you have worked a lot in television, the pace is
quick. Yeah, they'll change the words up on you like that. Like right in the scene. They won't even print something out. They'll be like, hey, you know what? Actually, take this, move it up here, move that down here, and then switch the whole order of your paper. And you're like, ah! You're like, I memorized it the other way, okay? It's like mental gymnastics, but you know, it's just the pace of it, and it's challenging in its own ways, you know. But for motion capture, I don't think we need to worry about that so much as making sure you get the emotion and the character down, and which is also very specific too. It's like she wouldn't put her hand on her hip like that. She wouldn't hold her gun like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There are lots of points to remember. Also for motion capture, I think it's like specifically come to this half of the table because the other half is untouchable, and then there's things that you can't touch, and then turn around, look at the window that's not there, but then someone calls you that's not going to call you, so you're just gonna look back and then make sure you start to take out your gun, but then place it back in another holster. And like there are other very specific things with motion capture that I feel like is also very mental gymnastics, you know.
There's so many times you're in a scene and it's like, should I sit here? We're not sure there's gonna be a chair yet.
Yeah.
Or we don't know how high the chair is gonna be, so don't. Or can I put this down here? No, we don't know what the height of that table is gonna be yet. So most of the time, sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't, and it's a little, you just don't know. you're living. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm just enjoying listening. I all of that is great. I think I was also thinking that live action can be quite a bit more dangerous. So there's a lot more it's a lot more dangerous, and there's more prep, and then still dealing with what Michelle's saying, people trying to hurry you up, and you still trying to keep calm and the nerves down and your team safe. So there's more challenges with that, because things can be, like I said, a lot more dangerous, and you have to have your eyes on everything and prep and make sure, you know, everyone is safe, include your team members, but the crew too. With the motion capture, we have such an advantage of having a more contained space, and everyone can be on huge mats, pads. You know, we can pad up as performers under the suits, where in live action, a lot of times women don't get that luxury because of the costumes that we have to wear.
Bikini evening gowns, yep.
Yep, falling downstairs, getting hit by cars, all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So things are a lot more elaborate, I would say, in live action, and but that can be an advantage because if you are in a big budget show, you might have time to previs and to really think about the action and to plan it out shot by shot, and have that creative time, which is like an exciting, you know, there's benefits to that. It's very exciting to create a previs. Sometimes when you're motion capture on the day, they'll say, we need this, and you have to come up with it. That's your mental gymnastics on that day of like, okay, we have to come up with maybe, you know, a 10-beat fight really quick. Whereas in live action, I might have had a day to prep that and come up with something that I really love.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And to kind of get into the weeds of the money, even like on motion capture, because you don't have to worry about the lighting or the sets or the wardrobe or any of that other stuff. You can get through like 5 fights in a day, right? Whereas if you're in live action, and so you're getting paid for 1 day's worth of work. And live action, you know, a good fight in a major movie is one fight is per week. So you're getting a week's worth of pay plus overtime, plus stunt adjustments, and plus residuals. And so like there definitely is a trade-off in that regard in terms of a sustainable lifestyle. It does make it harder to do because I focused a lot on motion capture, and there are no residuals in motion capture. And so I regret that to a certain degree. I am proud of all the games I've worked on and all the things I've done, but in terms of like financial stability,
Sure.
You know, film and television definitely helps in that regard. But I remember in terms of just living in your brain, I played a character in a virtual reality thing that I was playing a 10-year-old little girl, and the woman who was playing, and I'm 5'9", and the woman who was playing my mom was 5'1". And so because of eye lines and size and stuff like that, I mean, we could do that. That's a great thing about motion capture. I could play a 10-year-old little girl, and this woman could play my mom. But I had to keep looking up at the ceiling, even though she's standing right in front of me. And I think she had to look at my belly button for the right height. And so she's having a conversation with my belly button as I'm having a conversation with the ceiling. And it's just, you know, that's the cool thing about motion capture is that you can be in a mocap suit 3 days before you give birth. The body doesn't matter. It's your bone structure, and it's what you're able to do with your body. And that's the freedom. The characters that you can play are characters that you might not ever play otherwise because of motion capture, which is wonderful. We had, let's see more questions. What was your best mocap job ever? From Susanna.
Best.
Well, hands down for me, it was The Last of Us 2. I worked with Michelle as well.
Yeah.
But that was like a game changer, life changer for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have 2. I'd say Last of Us 2 or Resident Evil, just because Resident Evil 6, because I played that game on a what was the system? A dream. God, can you guys help me out with this console? It was a console, a dream. Oh my God, I'm blanking. That's how old I am.
Dreamcast.
A Dreamcast. Yeah, I played Resident Evil on a Dreamcast and PlayStation so many years ago, and I was a huge fan of the game. And for me to get to play the character Ada Wong was, thank you, Dreamcast. Yeah, was huge. But Last of Us was an epic. Last of Us 2 was an epic game. Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, they both were, but like The Last of Us too. I didn't work on that, but the game itself was just phenomenal. Gosh, favorite. Saints Row, the games were a blast. We laughed every single day, constantly. I loved working on that. I did a Pirates of the Caribbean game that never came out. That was hilarious. But currently, Gotham Knights has just been a dream role. It's just a dream role to be that Batgirl. So that has been phenomenal. And the team is like awesome. The other actors and the animators and the writers and the collaboration of it has been pretty great. But they're all so much fun. I mean, I have found that there's very little ego on a mocap set. There's a couple exceptions to that rule, but mostly there's no ego, and it's small and it's intimate, and there's maybe 20 people on set, and it's just a bunch of people working their hardest to get the story to come out in the best possible way. It's all for the story, and what a wonderful environment to be on. And it is less stressful, Michelle, like, because there's just very little ego. There's not, one of the questions we had gotten was about misogynistic moments or Me Too moments, and never on a mocap set.
Yeah.
That has never happened. Definitely on live action sets.
Yeah.
And I think that's because there's hundreds of people, and there's all these different, it's more of an archaic institution coming up, and there's more old practices in place. But motion capture, everyone involved is groundbreaking and is doing something new, and it's a different way of thinking. And yeah, I've never experienced that. Have you guys ever in a motion capture suit? No.
Yeah, I think you said it really well. Like there's less pressure there, and we're all there to create together what we can, like this awesome product, right? And we're all excited about it, and we all love it. I think that's why The Last of Us 2 was so transforming for me as a performer. It was so exciting to bring that to life, you know? And every day was like, we were all so excited when we would watch the playback, or how can we make this better? And when you're having fun, you create better. If you're sometimes on live action, I'll speak from experience, not having a great time or a little nervous or worried, you're not really getting the best product, you know? And so motion capture for me, like, I just love it just for those reasons. Yeah.
Have you guys had any backlash from fans? Because I know Last of Us 2 created a little bit of a backlash.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. Not personally, because it, you know, I don't know if anybody can target me specifically. But yeah, that was surprising to me. What do you think, Maggie?
Yeah, I'm actually not aware of what's going on. So you fill me in later when we get off.
Really? Sure.
I was actually surprised at the backlash.
Wow.
Yeah.
How violent it was, or?
Yeah, there were, I mean, it was, yeah, it was pretty violent. The death threats that were being posted from the developers and from some of the voice cast that they were getting was really disturbing. And so I didn't know if you guys had been targeted about that at all, or I'm happy to hear not. I'm thrilled to know that you don't even know that's happening. I'm thrilled to know that. Yeah, I was just wondering, and I've been warned, once that is a possibility, especially with the Gotham Knights, when you have an avid fan base, they have very specific ideas of how it should go and how it should be played and what characters should be in there and how the storyline should be, and that there's a lot of anger that can come out with that kind of stuff. So it's just part of it. Fans, to have the ardor of those fans, they're just so in love with these properties, which is incredible. It's incredible to get to work on something that people love so much, but there's always, a dark side to things.
Yeah. I mean, what I think personally is that it's a very intense story, so with a very intense story comes a lot of intense scenes, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's a story. I don't know. It's hard to
People were
understand
so
it.
invested in that specific story. That specific story, people were so in. That game, the first one, just changed the landscape for
I
so
know.
many games were handled. So, this is a really interesting question. Catherine asked, "Do we have rituals to help prepare for the different mediums? For example, motion capture versus film.
Ah.
Is there something you do that helps you focus on one or the other?"
What do you think?
I mean, I think for me, memorizing lines for a TV show is way more specific and intense, and I have to get everything down to the word. That's a big difference for me. Yeah, and I feel like action-wise, for mocap, it's more specific. Like as specific as the dialogue is for live action, the movement and the action is, I feel like, more specific for mocap. So I'm hyper aware of, certain things that I do in my movement, so I know to repeat them exact. Like if I put the gun down here, I have to remember to put it exactly there. Whereas for live action, I'm like, well, whatever take they're going to use, that's the take they're going to use. So as long as I'm in the general, vicinity. So there are different specifics for different ones. I don't know that I have a ritual besides memorizing intensely for TV and film.
So it's almost like switching gears in your brain. Like
Yeah.
on the job, the gear that I'm using in my brain is going to be all memorization for mental.
Yes.
The gear of my brain that I'm used for this one is just going to be all about the body and the memorization.
Correct.
That's the focus. Maggie, do you have anything?
I think that was really great, Michelle. I would also say like mocap, because I know my start time. I get up really early. I get a good stretch in, and just make sure that my body's awake. I'm feeling good before I get there. But then for live action, it's like get there as early as possible, so I know where to park, where I know where to go, because there's a lot more unknowns on the day. So I would say I would get there super early and then do my like warm up, physical, get in my body, get in my voice sort of thing. Those things change for me from those two mediums.
It's interesting because it depends on the job, right? So for motion capture, usually you have no idea what you're doing till you show up. So there's no like preparation that you can do ahead of time, unless you're doing performance capture, which is the lines and the motion capture, and you've been given lines ahead of time. When you're just doing motion capture and you're just doing the physical aspects, you usually don't know. You show up and they're like, all right, this is the animatic, this is what we need to figure out. So it's a little bit harder to prepare for when you're doing television and you're on camera or film or on camera. You've been given the sides ahead of time. You've been given the script ahead of time. You've been given all of that you can prep and warm up your voice. If you're doing voiceover, a lot of times you're not given the script until you walk into the booth. And a lot of the times for video games, you don't even know what the project is you're working on. So that's just all you can do is make sure your instrument is working. And then when you're doing stunts in film and television, a lot of the time you don't know what you're doing either, right? Like a lot of times a stunt coordinator will just call you and say, are you available Tuesday? Yep. Okay. See you Tuesday. And then unless it's something extreme, like a super high fall or a fire burn or something that takes a specific kind of skill, they don't tell you what you'll be doing. You just kind of show up and they'll be like, all right, today you're doing this fight, or today you're going to be falling or being shot or whatever. So it's about what instrument you warm up, whether you're warming up your brain, your voice, or your body. I think that would probably be the ritual that you have to do, and you kind of have to be able to do it all if you're going to try to do it all. As a director, how would you handle a situation in which one of the actors don't know their lines and is not prepared for a shoot? That's a good question. It depends. I had this happen once on a mocap shoot, and the cool thing about motion capture is you would just put the lines in front of them. So we printed up the lines big, and at every blocking point where that person had to say their lines, we put that there on a stick and they read it. And that was a pain in the ass, but we were able to get through it. With on camera, you just have to edit around it. I mean, you guys have been in scenes where people have forgotten their lines. How do you just have someone feeding them off lines, off camera, and then they just say the lines and then hope to never have to work with them again?
Well, I mean, for motion capture, what I've seen is a lot of like getting in general, getting the lines, right? Like not memorizing exactly the lines, but getting the timing of the lines. Like if your line is, hey, I need that, and you can't memorize it, like, you know, that's a terrible example because it's too short, but you know what I mean? Like getting the timing of what they're saying and in general saying something close to it still works. Definitely not for live action, but at that point, yeah, I've seen big cue cards written up. I've seen that for live action. It's like just big, you know.
Yeah, you have to have the big cue cards, and you just have to edit around it. And
Yeah, I've seen celebrities come on set for live action being high, just high from substances and just not knowing their lines, and you're like, oh my God, this is a train wreck. But I think the director at that point is just like, hey, just say something in the vicinity of the idea is let's all get out of here. Just improv. And at that point, it's like, let's get what we can because this guy's
yeah. Yeah. Maggie, what do you think?
Yeah, luckily I haven't had anything where I've been across somewhere where they're just blanking. But like what Michelle said, a lot of times if people aren't getting it exact in the volume and the motion capture, if it's pre-recorded voice, if they can get the timing of it for their movements to sync, it's not a huge catastrophe. But personally, I like to, for myself, I find it, I try to get it as close as I can.
Yeah.
You know, but
because in stunts, so when you're on camera and you're kind of locked into that person, right? You know, like you can, if you've already been shooting with them, you're kind of locked into that person. So you replacing them is not an option. In motion capture, if they show up unprepared, it's not hard to replace someone. You just ADR in their stuff and you can just swap out that because they're wearing somebody else's skin anyway. They're playing a different character. And in stunts, I think you do that once. You show up once unprepared and chances are will never work for that person again. And then word gets out really, really fast. So in the stunt world, that doesn't happen.
Fly. Yeah.
It does not fly at all. And lying about your ability is also something that does not fly in the stunt world. If you can't do something, you can't do it.
Or even embellishing. I mean, even embellishing and going, you know, you take one fight class and you're like, yeah, I can do a fight, you know.
No.
Yeah.
There's a story of that is legend in the stunt community of a stunt woman who said she could swim.
Oh.
Legendary.
Legendary. And not she was desperate for work, you know, and I get that. We've all been there, but she had to do a jump off a high dive, right? And it took everything she could to actually do the jump because she couldn't swim. Not only could she not swim, she was terrified of water, and she jumped and went down and sank like a rock and stayed at the bottom of the pool until someone finally went and got her. And so like, not only was that risking her own life,
right,
but then but every other person then was going to be witness to that and be responsible for that. And then thankfully she survived, but then they had to find someone else, which then slowed down production. And so, you know, be prepared and don't lie about what you can do. I actually think that should be across the board for every position. Unfortunately, it's not. But in the stunt community, you are held responsible for that. On the other positions, you're not. I know plenty of people who call themselves things that they're not.
Yeah.
Let's see. The subject of safety. What common errors do you find on a mocap set? And what precautions can be taken to ensure your safety? Also, you mentioned bruises, but have any of you suffered more serious injuries, specifically on a mocap set? In a volume.
Hi, Bill. I just realized it was Bill Beeman.
Bill Beeman? Oh.
Yeah, I kept reading William and I was like, don't know.
Hi, Bill. Safety, yeah. Well, I think, no, it's Chip. I think the big thing is don't be afraid to speak up at any time if you or someone is in danger. I think especially as a young performer, that might have been a concern of mine, to think that I didn't want to waste time or look bad or anything like that. But we're there to create, and it's play, you know, we're not there. You don't need to sacrifice your body or someone else's if you know that this isn't something. So I would just say, like, always be with it, know where everything is, heads up. Don't be afraid to speak up. I think that's like my number one rule. Always speak up if you see something. Because I think most of the time when accidents happen is when you start to have a really good time. Everyone's joking around. Oh, this is fun. And kind of like forgetting that we are doing stunts, right? And even though it's fun for us to be doing, we should be like focused and making sure that we are all paying attention when cameras are rolling. So I would say, I'm sort of babbling, but those are a few good things. Also, you are doing your own stunts, and if you're doing a little rehearsal and you're falling a certain way, tell somebody where you need your pad. Tell someone where you need your mat. You know that where you're throwing your body, where you're falling. Hey, I've been rehearsing this, and we seem to be going down on this angle. Can we tilt that? Like, hey, let us know where you need that. Because if I'm on the outside, if I'm coordinating something, I can sort of predict where I think things are going to go. I can put myself in that situation, but your body is different than mine. So if you are really going to fall different because you prefer that side, let me know. Let us know where you need something. So we're working together to keep everyone safe. So speak up.
Yeah. And there's a lot of magic that the animators can do. Not that we want them to do it, but there is a lot of magic where they can say, okay, start to do this, go hard. And then we'll cut that out. So the ending, you don't have to crash. And then we'll cut to, if that's something that's truly a difficult thing for the performer to do, there's a lot of magic that can happen with on the animator side. And so speak up and say, this really hurts, or this is going to make me hurt that. And things like that. Magic can happen on the other end too.
If you are an actor on a mocap set, you have the right to demand a stunt double or a stunt coordinator on a SAG production. Do it. If you show up on set and you find out that they're expecting to fly you on a rig and you don't feel comfortable, ask for it. Because if you get hurt, you get hurt. That's horrible. And ultimately that ends up costing everyone so much more money. And even if it's something that doesn't seem like it would be a big deal, if you don't feel safe and you don't feel comfortable, then just don't do it. You have to advocate for yourself. Everyone on that set is there because they're the best at their job. And if you're there as a stunt person, you're there because you're the best stunt person that they wanted for that job. So you need to be the professional who says, as a stunt person, I can tell you that not only maybe this is a better way of doing it that would look cooler, but this is also a safer way of doing it. And one of my experiences that I was working on a game, and they had, I had to do a bunch of deaths, and I was getting hit by a very large man with a pad repeatedly over and over from every direction, because I had to be killed from every direction. And then I had to change out my weapon and then do it again, right? So we're on like death 50 of being slammed from the sides, and the animator says, we need a bigger reaction, so hit her harder. And I was just like, ooh, hold on. So how physics works is, if you hit me harder, I actually can't give you a bigger reaction. My body will absorb, especially this guy. I will absorb that, and I will just drop like a rock. If you want a bigger reaction, let me just try something for you. Let me just audition something for you. And I turned to the guy and I was like, hit me the same way you've been hitting me, maybe even a little bit lighter. And then he hit me, and I took a bigger reaction. And it was exactly what they were looking for. But they are your boss, absolutely. And this is about a respectful exchange of ideas, but you are the expert on that stage in that position. You are the expert as the actor, you are the expert as the stunt coordinator or as the stunt person. And a lot of times when you're a stunt person on a mocap set, there is no stunt coordinator. Mm-hmm. So you have to advocate for yourself. And in that particular situation, I was able to give them what they wanted even more and get wrecked a little less. And I think that's a win-win situation. So yes, take care of yourself, because if you get hurt, no one wins. Mm-hmm. No one does. If you get worn out, if you can't work the next day and they have you scheduled for the entire week, that screws over everyone and you. So always communicate. Yeah, that's right. communication is key, Chip. That's exactly right. So, and never be afraid to communicate that. And specifically on a mocap set, that's one of the best places you can. That is the places where I have found that the people are the most receptive, and again, the least amount of ego. On movie sets, it's a little bit more difficult because there's a lot more of that pressure, and there's the time, and there's all those other things. Still do it though. If it's safety, still communicate. Don't get hurt, please. Nothing is that important. Speaking of hurt, other than the bruises from the balls, have you guys had any other serious, the markers, I should say the markers. The markers.
That's the funniest joke ever in all of mocap. I mean, I've had major sore days that took long time to recover. I've had neck kinks from whiplash reactions. I haven't had any broken bones or twisted anything, knock on wood, but I know some people that have. But you know, depending on who you're working with, what the studio that you're working with, if they're brand new and this is their first game ever and they've never experienced this before, they could injure you a lot easier if you don't speak up for yourself than a seasoned group, like for example Sony, who I've worked with for years, and they have it down like a well-oiled machine. They know that this, you can't, you know, overwork this. You can't do this without a pad. You can't do that because it'll just wreck the performer, and there's no performer for the next 2 days, you know? So depends on who you're working for, but they would know how to injure you less, you know, and if you speak up for yourself. So there have been injuries, but I think very limited as compared to live action.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, cool. Okay, I think we're nearing the end of our questions.
William Beeman, not Bill Beamer. I totally read that wrong.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, Chip. I think it's Chip from. Is that Chip from Sony?
that's funny.
Chip from Halp.
Oh, no, Chip from Halp.
Nope. Yes.
Hi. We got it. Okay, so I think these are questions, we've done a lot of these. Oh, from someone who's done mainly cinematics and locomotion, firearm, do you think it's possible to have a successful cinematics career in mocap without being a full stunt performer, as they have found that producers, coordinators are hiring stunt performers who can act? I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of the times still they cast the voice for the character, and if the person can also move and act, like Laura Bailey is a perfect example. She does a ton of cinematic work and voiceover work. Ashley Johnson, right, from The Last of Us, Troy Baker. Like, there's a lot of people who are mainly actors, who do the cinematics and they do the voice, and then they bring in other people to double them. So that's still absolutely possible, but it's still really important to be physical in your body. Did I understand the question, Robin, correctly? Is that what you were?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Great. Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. So it looks like from the Halp Network in the chat room, we are wrapping up. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them on the Facebook page of this live event, and then they will be funneled to us to respond to them. Thank you so much for joining us today. Maggie, what would you like to promote choreography for?
Oh, Raya and the Last Dragon. So I guess it comes out in March. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, and Michelle, what about you?
I have a show on CBS called Blood and Treasure. That's season 2 coming out, where I have a character in it, and I'm super excited.
Massive.
And a series regular. And Black Widow at some point is going to come out, but I have a small role in that. I'm excited about Black Widow. And you can Instagram me at _Michelle Lee with 2 L's, or I think I have my representation information on IMDb, so my reps are on IMDb. Michelle Lee.
And TikTok. Check her out on TikTok.
Yes.
Oh, God. And TikTok. I'm gonna be famous on TikTok.
TikTok famous. My social medias are at America_Young. Feel free to reach out, and both Twitter and Instagram. I love answering questions and supporting people, specifically entering into this world and keeping people safe. So let us know. And Gotham Knights 2021.
Yay!
Yay!
Thanks for having us. Thank you, America, for
Thank you
leading.
so much, guys. It was such a blast to visit with you.
We'll catch up soon.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.